Many societies throughout history, and even today, have held many kinds of animals in high regard, incorporating them into their religious beliefs and cultural expressions. The ancient Egyptians were no exception, and considered all kinds of animals to be sacred, such as the Nile crocodiles, which were kept on temple grounds in Fayum, Crocodilopolis to the Greeks, as they were considered to be manifestations of Sobek, the crocodile-headed god associated with the Nile, or ibis birds, which were associated with Thoth, the god of writing, wisdom, and magic, and of course dogs, for their association with the jackal-headed Anubis. However, if there is one animal we can point to for being most prominent in the depictions of daily life and religious practice in ancient Egypt, it is the cat. Both common house cats and big cats have the honour of holding this distinction. As you can see, there was a commonality of animals being considered sacred in ancient Egypt due to an association of the animal in question with a deity, represented in either human-animal hybrid form or purely in animal form. The association of the animal was tied to the specific forces of nature or aspects of the world to which the deity was responsible for controlling, for example, Sobek, the Nile, crocodiles, as they were a powerful river-dwelling animal. Another example is Anubis, mummification, jackals, as jackals are scavengers. You get the idea. With cats, it's no different. Cats were an integral part of ancient Egyptian religious belief, not only due to the various feline deities, but also in their own right as sacred protectors of the afterlife. According to the Egyptian Book of the Dead, cats were representatives of the sun god Ra and his light on earth. Speaking of Ra and his association with cats, one of my favourite Egyptian myths is about the Eye of Ra. The myth states that towards the end of Ra's earthly reign, or his old age, there are multiple accounts of most myths, he unleashed his daughter, Hathor, in the form of the fierce lion-headed goddess Sekhmet upon humanity for their rebellion and insolence towards him. The myths hint that Ra was kind of becoming senile by this point. However, Sekhmet's bloodlust eventually became too much even for Ra. Talk about letting the cat out of the bag. To protect mankind from inevitable extinction, Ra concocted a scheme to get Sekhmet under control by getting her drunk. Ra instructed his servants to mix ochre with beer, thus disguising the beer as blood, and then proceeded to flood the fields of the human realm with it. When Sekhmet next attacked, she drank thousands of litres of the alcoholic ruse. Then with her thirst for blood finally satiated, she decided to leave humanity alone and return to Ra, probably with a legendary hangover as well. Cats were so revered in ancient Egyptian religion that it could actually be turned against them. The 2nd century CE Greek author Polyaenus alleged that during the Persian Empire's invasion of Egypt, the Persian king Cambyses was frustrated with Pharaoh Psamtik III for halting his advance into Egypt. He resorted to having images of the goddess Bastet painted on the shields of his infantry. A bit more on Bastet shortly. According to Polyaenus' account, at the Battle of Pelusium, Cambyses even went as far as to have cats and other sacred animals considered sacred by the Egyptians placed on the front lines of his army. Reportedly, the Egyptian soldiers, when seeing this, threw down their arms and routed, abandoning their position for fear of desecrating the sacred image of their beloved goddess, and to not risk injuring the sacred animals in the fighting. The most prominent feline deity throughout the many dynasties of ancient Egypt was the goddess Bastet, with their primary temples and seat of worship being the city of Bubastis, Perbast, located in the Nile Delta region of Lower Egypt. Bastet had many roles as a deity. For most of Egyptian history, she was a warrior goddess, depicted with the head of a lioness, daughter of Ra and Isis, protector of Lower Egypt and the pharaoh. An interesting and fundamental change occurred to both her appearance and her roles during the Third Intermediate Period. Her depictions moved away from being a fierce lion-headed goddess to a domestic cat deity, essentially being worshipped as only a cat deity from that point onwards. Her roles changed to being goddess of pregnancy, childbirth, and the home, as well as protector against disease and bad spirits. This role was previously held by the older feline deity Mufdet. Egyptologists theorised that this change was influenced by cats being caring and attentive to their offspring. This is further supported by contemporary statuary of Bastet in cat form with a litter of kittens. Cats were not only considered sacred beings in ancient Egypt, they also had an important practical and symbiotic relationship with humans. Cats were highly considered in ancient Egypt for their ability to keep vermin, such as mice and rats, under control, which in turn protected the main food supplies in Egypt, grains especially, helping to ward off famine. Egyptian cats were also adept at killing cobras and other venomous snakes, helping to protect their owners. Cats were so revered in ancient Egypt that the cats within the pharaoh's family were often adorned with jewellery and ate in the presence of the pharaohs. They were even allowed to eat off of their owners' plates. The majority of cats, whether they were wild or domesticated, were referred collectively as cat, mew or mute. This likely comes from the sound a cat makes, or possibly in reference to the word mew, to see. Though rare, some cats were given their own individual name, the most famous example being Nejim, Sweetie, a cat who lived during the reign of Pharaoh Thutmose III. Nejim is the first recorded cat name in history. It was illegal for anyone, even the pharaoh, to kill or injure a cat. The penalty for the crime was death. The ancient Greek historian Diodorus Siculus recorded an incident in Ptolemaic Egypt, around 60 BCE, where a Roman was lynched for killing a cat. Not even intervention from the reigning pharaoh, Ptolemy XII Auletes, was able to save the ill-fated Roman from the angry Egyptian crowd. The death of a household cat was also a sad and serious affair. When a household's cat died, the members of the household would shave off their eyebrows and would enter a period of mourning until their eyebrows grew back. Like humans, cats were mummified after death. Cat mummies have been found buried with their owners since at least the 12th dynasty, which lends even more evidence to the theory that household cats were considered sacred and seen as protectors in the afterlife. In fact, in the later periods of ancient Egypt, a whole commercial industry sprang up around mummies of cats and other sacred animals. The cult of cat worship became an important linchpin in the Egyptian economy. Note that the use of the word cult is very different to our own. The word cult comes from the Latin cultus, meaning care. A religious cult in ancient Egypt was focused on the worship of a deity and the upkeep of its temples and iconography. After all that, I guess you were left wondering, well, what kind of cats did the ancient Egyptians have? You might have conjured an image in your head of a mighty lion or cheetah sitting diligently by the pharaoh's throne, or perhaps a sleek-coated black cat, right? Well, that's not quite accurate. This common perception in the contemporary imagination of ancient Egypt and its cats was largely popularised by the striking bronze statues, mostly from the Ptolemaic period, which were used to house cat mummies at burial sites. There is ample evidence to show that the most common form of domesticated house cat in ancient Egypt was the humble tabby cat, descended from wild cats, Felis sylvestris libica, the African wildcat, which were common in the area. Evidence for tabby cats being the most common breed in Egypt can be found from depictions in Egyptian art and from genetic research. A more recent study from the peer-reviewed scientific journal Nature, Ecology and Evolution confirmed that the patchy patterns common in today's house cats only originated in the 18th century. As such, it is more than likely that modern tabby cats are descended from the very same cats that were running around in the days of the pharaohs. Think of the Egyptian Mao, which is most definitely a descendant from those ancient cats. The ancient Egyptians had a hand in spreading cats to the nearby areas of the Mediterranean and the Near East, though the Romans undoubtedly were most responsible for taking these striped and spotted cats out of Egypt and spreading them around the rest of the Mediterranean and Europe in the 1st century CE. The rest, as they say, is history, which is how modern tabbies have come down to us today. Speaking of tabbies, remember earlier in the video how I talked about the association of cats with Ra? Well, the most interesting theory as to how that relationship came about is the pattern found on the foreheads of all tabby cats. To the ancient Egyptians, the pattern looked like a scarab beetle, which was a symbol associated with Ra. They believed that Khepri, a scarab beetle who rolled the sun across the sky, was the morning manifestation of Ra, hence the association of cats holding an element of Ra's divine light on Earth. Can you see the forehead pattern? Kind of looks like a scarab beetle, doesn't it? Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content from this channel, then please subscribe. And of course hit that like and notification button. The channel also has a Twitter and Instagram, so if you're a connoisseur of memes, history memes, like myself, and Twitter drama, follow me there as well. Links in the description below. Until next time.